encourage everybody to take their seats. Oh, you're all so good. Quieted down. You thought I was going to say something important. Saskia, will you please join me? You all know Saskia Bose, Dean of the School of Art here at Cooper Union? You will shortly. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Creative Time's second annual summit. And I want to welcome everybody who's joining us internationally, far and wide, on live stream. Hello, people that I cannot see. I'm curious how many of you came to our first summit last year? Fantastic. Welcome back. How many of you have come from out of state? Wow. Oh, my God. Thank you. How many of you have come from out of the country? Yeah, well, I applaud you all. Thank you for being here. You know, at Creative Time, we believe there's no door an artist shouldn't kick open. And we're here this weekend to explore ways in which artists are kicking doors open all over the globe, from the Netherlands to Nigeria, from Brooklyn to Bangkok. You know, and it takes a lot of people to make this modest little summit a reality. So I want to thank a few people. First and foremost, I have to tell you, I have the most exceptional board. Some of them got up early and they're here today. Wave hands, board members. Yes, thank you. I also have an exceptional staff, and I have to tell you, every day I come into the office and I look forward to working with them. They're brilliant, they're creative, they're patient, and they're very hardworking and dedicated to our mission. And in particular, I want to thank two people. How many of you know our brilliant curator, Nato Thompson? Yes. I'm a big fan of NATO's, and you know, I have to say this is a man with a really genuine heart and a deep philosopher. Not a day goes by where I don't learn tremendously from him. And NATO, thank you for being part of our lives and making this summit such a visionary event. So thank you, NATO. And I also want to thank the man who, without him, none of this would happen. Shane Brennan, our assistant curator. You are just the consummate professional. Now, we all had a lot of support, but those guys, thank you very much. And I also want to say that there are a lot of visionary funders who are joining us today, people who support our programming in a big way year in and year out. In particular, I want to acknowledge the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, the Lambent Foundation, a project of the Tide Center. I want to thank the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation. And I want to thank our government supporters, in particular the New York State Council on the Arts and the Department of Cultural Affairs here in New York City. But the summit also happens because people really believe in artists working to inspire individuals, build community, and kicking doors open for social justice. And today's summit, or this weekend's summit, is supported by a few particular foundations, including the Annenberg Foundation, the Gladys Kriebel-Delmels Foundation, the Laurie M. Tisch Illumination Fund, the Trust for Mutual Understanding, and we have some government partners who are with us, in particular the Austrian Cultural Forum, the Embassy of France in the United States, and the Danish Arts Council. And then we love those corporate partners of ours. So thank you, Livestream, Park Avenue Autumn, Floors Bella, and the Standard Hotel. And there are also some funders who really believe that students, and they're probably the ones who aren't here yet because, you know, they were drinking a lot of beer last night, that students should be able to have access to all these great artists and curators, their minds, and participate in this summit. And so I want to thank two families, William and Charlotte Ford, as well as Annie and Robert Tershwell, for their support of underwriting students' participation. We also want to thank somebody who I think isn't here yet. Michelle Coffey, are you in the house? Well, tell her I thanked her. So Michelle Coffey from the Lambent Foundation has really been a guiding light as we conceived of this summit and supporting so much of what we're doing here today. And then last and most importantly, we're here to thank the School of Art here at Cooper Union. They've been a fantastic partner hosting this event, their faculty, their students, the staff, and in particular my dear friend, the legendary curator and great cultural historian, Saskia Bose, who I welcome to the podium now.
Thank you, Anne, and congratulations already. So I'll be very brief because later in the morning I will give a keynote speech. Welcome to the Great Hall, this impressive podium where Abraham Lincoln gave his speech, "Right Makes Might," and where also President Clinton and President Obama spoke. A place that is also an important center of intellectual debate in downtown Manhattan, characterized as the Temple of Dissent by Amy Goodman in her commencement speech she gave 2 years ago. The School of Art is committed to build on Cooper Union's rich history as an important civic institution and forum by actively using both the Great Hall and the Rose Auditorium to bring audiences together for discussions that benefit the Cooper community and the art community at large. We're happy to collaborate with Creative Time as well as with other non-for-profit organizations for panels, lectures relating to contemporary topics about arts, politics, and society. And because of our own mission of providing free programming to engage the campus and the public in intellectual discourse, we feel an affinity with Creative Time, with their work of bringing innovative and challenging art into the public sphere, and with their ongoing efforts to support new ideas. I would already like to thank Anne Pasternak for the wonderful opportunity to collaborate on this project, as well as the staff of Creative Time, with a special thanks to Nato Thompson for his energy and collegiality. I'm personally very much looking forward to these 2 intense days and hope you will all enjoy this unique event, and I hope you'll stay for as long as you want. Have a great 2 days summit.
It's a long walk to the mic. Every presenter is going to feel like they're getting an award. But instead they have a time clock greeting them like I do right there. It's counting down. It's at 9 minutes, 53 seconds you have left to endure me. Hi, my name is Nato Thompson, and thanks for coming out. I don't know if any of you came from Brooklyn, but the L train isn't working. Guess you know that. It's kind of tough to get here. And I'm sure there's many people that know that aren't here right now. Seriously, I'm not joking. A lot of empty seats. And they're going to get the bad ones. So I also want to welcome, so this is being live streamed, and I'm not sure how that's all going to work. This is a new venture for us. But for those online, you know, it's so funny when you say this kind of thing. I keep imagining there's one person. But maybe there's not. Maybe there's tons. I have no idea. We got analytics to figure out later. But welcome. And I also want to say there's actually 2 classes that are watching this live at MassArt and at Carnegie Mellon. So there's classrooms watching us, so hey, hi guys. Thanks for watching. Let's talk. This second iteration of the summit is an opportunity to think through public practice. And frankly, you know, there's always new names that come about in terms of this work. New genre, participatory art, socially engaged art, public practice, whatever. They come in community-based arts. We can either carve it up and make a new niche to produce a new grad program, or we can try to basically, I think the intent is artists that are interested in making a difference in culture, in terms of that thing called politics, gathering together to think through that. And frankly, I want to say, I don't think it's an easy landscape to solve. We all know that. One thing that, you know, constantly, when you do this kind of political art stuff, I'm sure all of y'all experience this, you get these accusations from people that don't really care a lot, you know? And one of them is, oh, you're just preaching to the choir. You're just preaching the choir, right? And you're like, who's the choir, right? Who are these people that I'm preaching to? Are you guys the choir? But this accusation, which is about audience and about language, right? We all have these kind of different languages that our aesthetics speak in, specifically even our own language, literally, and our cultural forms speak in. So that is, to some degree, produces these differences. You know, we just yesterday morning had a meeting between people that do kind of activistic community organizing stuff and art stuff. And as you all know that ever sit down with activist friends or art people sitting around, people speak very different aesthetic languages. And one of the tasks is to try to get us internationally and discursively to start speaking enough of the same language where we can actually start arguing with each other. We can't even argue yet because we don't know what each other is saying. So this is one of the tests. Who is the choir? Who are we to become? I like to think that we're speaking to a choir that has yet to exist. That is, we are trying to put together something, a language around socially engaged, aesthetic, cultural production that has efficacy. And that audience and that community is not yet formulated. And certainly New York has always been a platform for politically engaged work. But let's face it, it ebbs and flows. It comes and it goes. And hopefully this is an opportunity for us to really try to kind of, not just a show of force, but a show of a possible internationalism that is both productive politically on the ground. Yesterday I said, socially engaged work isn't inherently good, normatively speaking. It's not a good thing. It's just something we do. The artist Tanya Bruguera said to me, I don't want an art that points at a thing. I want an art that is the thing. That is the thing. And I think a lot of the artists, this idea that art stays in the box and then the world of politics and sociality stays out here is increasingly not the case. That we live in a landscape where cultural production is the production of politics. It is the production of who we are. Do you really think people vote based on facts? That's such a joke. People vote based on cultural affinity and various kind of late spectacle kind of conditions that make us who we are. And the cultural landscape is a political landscape. And that call to arms, if you will, that kind of late capital postmodernity that we are in, makes cultural producers extraordinarily relevant in society. We're no longer, well, some of us, and that's okay, just the big weirdo abstract people in the corner. We're in the center of everyday life. And also, the relationship of cultural production to everyday life is no longer what it once was. Everybody's a cultural producer. Go on YouTube. People make stuff. People engage in culture. People eat it. They use bodily functions with it. And they make it. They make the world happen culturally. This is how we produce a politics. With that in mind, I think that that's the kind of call that we're here to engage with. I personally don't have an investment in any one kind of form, but I do have an investment in getting somewhere. And I hope in this room, we have some questions. I hope all of us can bring that to bear. The point is, in some ways, I like to think of it as being good citizens. What I mean by that is we don't use ideas to just destroy each other because we're totally insecure and weird. Right? We don't use like Marxist theory as a way to pretend we're like some sort of genius. But we use it to basically get somewhere. Right? We're trying to get somewhere. So fine, use your critiques, but try to get somewhere. Slavoj Žižek, I don't even know if he said this. You know how some people get credited with a quote and they didn't say it? And Žižek has so many, I think he just gets credited with all of them. I think he suggested that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. And certainly, that bleak assessment, I was just looking at that horrible sludge, that red sludge. I thought I was looking at some sort of Tarkovsky nightmare, but it was YouTube reality. But anyways, the end of trying to imagine a world that isn't just the end of capitalism, to imagine a world that is post this kind of condition of capital is difficult for us, and that is a cultural project. So this is the kind of thing that we're involved in. Here's some kind of form kind of things that we got to go through. The weekend is broke up into some sections, and one of the main kind of components of this year's summit is this concept of infrastructures, that a lot of artists are engaged with things from governmentality to food production to alternative economies to alternative schools, structural. And that, to my mind, speaks to a few kind of conditions. One is the emergence of kind of DIY culture as a cultural way of working. The growth of CSAs, the growth of slow foods, the kind of massive privatization of the educational institutions and food markets have increasingly forced people to find alternatives. And that alternative production has produced a kind of aesthetic form that I think we're going to find iterated through a lot of the projects we see this weekend. Another thing to think about too, of course, is that one of the kind of questions that's definitely haunting politically engaged work is this question of the gesture, right? That you can never do enough. We all know this, right? That it needs to be deeper, longer. Our award winner, Rick Lowe, who got the Creative Time Prize for Art, and Creative Time Annenberg Prize for Art and Social Change, he started his project in 1993. Okay, it's 2010. Project Row House is an amazing project. But I always imagine some artists thinking like, does that mean I got to spend 17 years on this project? I mean, and so the question is, how long? What is the level of engagement? When is it productive? How can we do that? And I think this thinking through time and also level of commitment with the community is one of the kind of concerns that are flagrantly very much out there. So we're definitely going to see that. I also want to also qualify so many qualifiers, but because this event is increasingly more international, we have more cancellations. Sorry, visas are hard. So the artist Dilam Prizuli from Nigeria is unable to get through here, and just Shane Brennan got a lot of praise, and I think 70% of it was trying to get that visa worked out. But it didn't work out, so he won't be with us. And Shoes Martinez couldn't make it either because of a scheduling issue with the plane. But also, just thinking internationally, one of the conditions that we must think about is that the conditions geographically and historically are very different on the ground. So people's relationship to cultural production is different, and it's not this homologous kind of condition globally, that in fact the kind of relationships that people in the United States have to spectacle are clearly very different than the relationships of those in Beirut or Mexico City. These are different kind of conditions that we must think through in terms of kind of producing an international language around this stuff. All right, I got 33 seconds to say some things that are very basic. Housekeeping. Cell phones, quiet. Although many of you don't get reception anyways. The other thing is we're going to have question and answer periods at the end of each section. Some tips. Try to get to your point pretty quick. I'm going to be like just moderating discussion. I don't want to be like, don't be like, oh, no, I was working on this project in 1994, and let me tell you about it for 40 minutes, right? Don't do that thing. I hate that. We're here to be generative. We only got 30 minutes for question and answer, but we want to hear from you. So please keep your questions succinct, not too kind of self-referential, and productive. That would be very nice. The other thing, too, is the question and answer came out of your feedback from last year. A lot of people said, hey, where's the discussion? We'd like to have more of that. So we were listening, and that's why we put this in here. After this, let me know how it goes. We're doing another one next year. We're open to comments. This is a productive relationship where we're trying to figure it out collectively between us. So, let's just think about this for feedback, because I really want this to give you what you need. Okay, so thanks for being here. Now I'm going to introduce our first panel, which is on the subject of markets. They're cutting me off. All right. The section on markets, this is kind of like alternative economies, will be introduced by Julia Bryan Wilson, author, scholar, educator, and artist, currently visiting scholar in craft and theory at CCA in Oakland. Anton Vidokal, artist and founder of the international art network eFlux, focused on experimental models of art education, including night school seminars he organized at New Museum in 2008 and 2009, and currently in alternative economies with his time banking project. The artist J. Morgan Pewitt will be here, an interdisciplinary artist, cultural producer, and fashion designer, co-founder, director of Mildred's Lane, which is an amazing place. Sarasi Kusawong came out from Bangkok, thank you, where he creates participatory art environments in the form of marketplaces that emphasize social interaction over profit. And the Danish art collective Superflex, who have so many projects it's incredibly impossible to talk about all of them, but typically engage economic forces, explorations of the democratic production of materials, and experimental models that challenge prevailing forms of economic production. They're coming up. So please join me in welcoming Julia Bryan Wilson.